I'm going to show you how to use Illuminate Item Bank to create NGSS aligned assessments. Illuminate Item Bank is really handy because not only do we have access to NGSS aligned questions, but we also have the option of administering the assessment electronically. So those of us who have access to the class set of Chromebooks, it's nice because our students will have access to assessments in the same format that they will take the CASP in the spring. In addition, Illuminate will score the assessment for you and then compile that data into some nice reports that you can then go over in your PLCs. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Create an Assessment, and then I want to choose Create an Assessment from a bank of items. I'm going to make sure that I have Assessment Standard Mode chosen, and then from there I can create my assessment. So I'm just going to title mine Biology CFA. I can choose to describe the assessment and assign the grade level, but that's not necessary and it's not required. So I'm just going to hit create. Now I'm at step 2, which is choosing my standards. It's very important that in the type of standard that you choose NGSS by disciplinary core idea. You have to choose NGSS arranged by DCI if you want to see every single item. If you choose the other NGSS options, you won't have access to all the items that are aligned to the NGSS. So make sure that you choose NGSS arranged by DCI. Obviously, the subject is science. The grade level is going to depend on what course you teach. So there's physical sciences, life sciences, earth and space sciences, and engineering design. I'm going to choose life sciences. And notice that my screen was populated with all the NGSS arranged by DCI. I'm going to go ahead and expand HSLS1, and now I can see all of the standards that fall under HSLS1 here. Notice that off to the right of each standard, in purple, it tells you how many items there are for each of those standards. So I'm just going to select HSLS1. Notice when I click, the heading has turned green, and then immediately to the right it says selected. If I look to the far right of my screen, I can see that I've selected a single standard, and then right here I see that standard listed. I'm also going to choose HSLS1-2. Again, notice that the header turned green and it says selected. I'm going to hit next. Now I have the option to refine my search. Let's say that I want to assign questions that are only discrete. I don't want any passage-based questions. I can do that here. I can also select from author or where the question source is. I'm not going to refine my search. I just want a broad search, so I'm just going to hit search here without making any selections. And then I can see that there are 6 passages and 29 question items that are aligned to HSLS1 and HSLS1-2. Here's the passage. And one thing that I want to point out is that notice this item here. It says MC. So that's a multiple choice question. In addition, I have a little pencil icon, which means that this question is available to be assigned on a paper exam. So I'll show you later how you have the option of generating a PDF so that you can photocopy and give the assessment to your students in pen and paper. And then there's also the fact that this is an online test, note the little screen. Some of these questions, it is important to note, are only available for administration electronically. So for example, this question here. This is a drag and drop question, hence the DD. But notice that I only have a computer screen. This question lacks the little pencil icon. I can only give this question electronically using the Illuminate software. If I were to select this question for my assessment and then generate the PDF booklet, this question would be missing and it would have a little statement that would say something like, this question is not available for paper-based testing. So you want to make sure that if you're going to administer a paper-based test, that you do not select questions that only have this computer screen. So let's say that I'm going to administer my test paper-based because unfortunately I do not have a class set of Chromebooks, so I would need to create a PDF booklet. So I'm going to make sure that I only select questions that have the pencil here. So I'm going to choose these questions. Notice that once I select the question, it says added, and then I could remove the question as well. To the far right of my screen, I can see that that pane has been updated in addition to the 2 standards that were listed earlier, it now tells me that I have selected a single passage, and there are 2 questions that I've also selected. So I'm going to add this question as well. I'm not adding this question again because I do not have Chromebooks, so I would not be able to administer that question to my students. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select next. So that's all the questions that I want to choose here. I have the chance to review my item, so here's the passage that I've selected. I can choose which passage I want to start at, or what question I want to begin. So if I wanted this to be question 7, then I can go ahead and edit this here. I can review those questions. I have the option, if you see up here, to shuffle the question choices. So I can shuffle all the answer choices if I wanted to. I don't want to, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit next. And now my booklet is going to be generated. So I can choose what font I want, the font size, all kinds of options here for administration of this assessment, paper and pen based. The PDF, I can decide, how many columns I want, all that kind of stuff. I'm just going to hit generate because I'm not going to be picky about how my exam looks. And I can see that the booklet is being generated. The booklet's going to download. So here it's downloaded, it's finished. I'm going to go ahead and expand that test booklet so that I can see it. So here are the directions. Here's the passage, all the passage media, and then here are my questions that go along with the passage. So this is where I was saying that if let's say I wasn't paying attention and I chose a question that only had the computer screen icon, meaning that it was only available to be administered electronically, I would see like the number 4 here, and then there would be a box that says this item is only available in electronic administration. So that question would show up as unavailable for my students. So if I was going to administer this assessment with pen and paper, I could download this, I could print it, run it off at the copy machine, and then give that to my students. Let's say that I do have access to the Chromebook class set, then I could go ahead and administer my assessment electronically. And so I would go ahead and hit next. And this is where I can publish my assessment. So I'm going to go ahead and hit publish. And when I do that, there's all the information about the assessment, the standards that are linked, the number of questions, all that kind of stuff. But I can preview the assessment. So I can take a look at how this assessment would look for my students who are going to take the exam online. I'd hit begin test. And here I have a format that's very similar to the CASP. So here is my passage. I can scroll down through my passage. Here's the question. Let's say I'm not sure about my answer for this question, so I'm going to choose B, but I want to flag it for review later. My students can go ahead and choose that option. I can go to the next question up here at the top, and I can keep answering from here. I can hit review, finish the test. Shows me that I've answered one question. I flag this question, I can hit the flag, and it brings me right back to that question if I have time at the end of my assessment and I want to maybe take a look at that item one more time. And then it tells me the questions that I've left blank. I'm going to hit finish. It's going to tell me, are you sure you're not done with the assessment? But I am sure, so I'm going to hit finish. And then it says my assessment has been completed. So I can return to the item bank, and then I have all this information about my assessment. So if I wanted to access this assessment later, I would do so in Illuminate. So I could go back to Illuminate. And it's loading, and then I can see here's my biology CFA. So I could click it, and it's loading slowly. So now I have noticed, it tells me that they've noticed I don't have any student responses. I can print the answer sheets, I can download the test booklet, or I could administer the assessment just like we normally do. So I could administer do online testing if I had the Chromebooks. If I needed to create or to print those PDF booklets, I have that option here. There's the answer key that's available here. So there's my answer choices. All of that is here. And again, it's just like regular assessment that we grade in Illuminate. The software would grade the assessment for you, and then you can come over here to reports, and you have access to a ton of information about the assessment that you had administered. So hopefully this is helpful for you, especially as you are working on creating those CFAs. and then other assessments as we prepare for our students taking the CASP in the spring. Thanks!